What's up, everybody? This is Backlog Gaming here with another video for you today. Today's video is going to be focused around Uncharted 4. This will be my review slash kind of spoiler discussion. So I'm just going to give you a heads up right now. In the title it obviously said spoilers, but in case you missed that, I want to give you a chance to turn the video off. If you have not beat the game, you most likely don't want to watch this. In fear of all spoilers. If you don't care about spoilers, don't say that you weren't warned. So I'm going to give a countdown from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's get into the game. Now, Uncharted 4, I must say, is the best PlayStation 4 game that I have played to date. Now, a lot of PlayStation 4 games that I've played, exclusive title-wise, I haven't played Bloodborne. That's another one that's fairly popular, but I do feel that Uncharted 4, hands down, would hand Bloodborne its ass in a Game of the Year nomination. This game is by far the best ending to a series that they could have possibly wrote, that they could have possibly done. And the way it ends is leaves it open for generations to come that we might see another, Uncharted game in the future, but not with Nathan Drake, but maybe with his daughter that's in the epilogue. That right there, to where you've seen his adventures, you could look on the wall with all the pictures and everything, was the big thing to me, is that they finally tied the story to an end. Now, this whole time that I was playing this game, and I was severely obsessed with this game, like I beat it in 2 days, 3 days. I went ham on it, literally. But it just does everything better. I want to talk a little bit about the gameplay mechanics, how they kind of evolved them a little bit from the previous 3 Uncharted games. One new feature that they had was a rope feature, to where you can swing back and forth between areas on command. In the previous ones, there's a rope there, and you could either use it to run against the wall, really, or swing vertically to get to something else. They added this fling feature to where you can fling it, hook it, and then from there slide over to the other side. Now, this added some very crazy action shots. Now, a little bit of an issue with this feature is how they introduced it. Apparently, Nathan's brother taught him this when he was a kid, but yet we never seen it used in the previous 3 Uncharteds. So I find that kind of being... I wish they would have introduced it in a different way, that he learned this, and how he utilized this to kind of make it more believable in the story, since the feature was not used in the previous games. The other feature that I liked was the sliding feature. Now, when you're swinging or whatever and you land on a rock slide or a mud slide, you can literally slide down it, and that creates some cool action shots, to where maybe you're sliding down a cliff, you jump at the last moment and hook onto the cliff that's on the other side. It creates a little bit more, awe moments. This one feature is perfectly fine. It's logical that this feature could be in this game, because nobody really taught Nathan you can slide in 3 or 2 or 1. It's just something new that they implemented it, and it made sense that it's just how you move around the terrain. So I really enjoyed that feature. Another one, and I can't remember if this was in the 3rd or 2nd Uncharted, or the first one, and even at that, was a little pick that you get that you can jam into the side of rocks, so you can literally use the jump button to pull yourself up, and then use the square button to jab in a spike, and then use that spike as leverage to get to the next crawling point. This was very, very cool. This was entertaining to me. This was very interesting. I can't recall if this is a new mechanic or not, but if it was, I feel perfectly fine with it. So with that being said, the only negative thing is the swinging thing, because it really doesn't make sense in the lore of the game, the history of the game itself, since Nathan's had this skill this whole time, but yet he's never really used it. Now, with that said, let's kind of move on. The shooting aspect, it's the same traditional shooting aspect that you have, third-person shooter, very Uncharted like people aren't really bullet sponges. You know, a couple shots and they go down. There are some enemies with armor and stuff, and you have the melee attacks and the stealth attacks. So if you wanted to go through the game two different ways, you can go run and gun, or you can go through it where you're very strategic on who you take out, how you take somebody out, when you take somebody out, marking your enemies, really analyzing the enemies, and then from there making your approach. So it can kind of cater to two different gameplay styles. It's another reason why this game I feel is on a different level than previously before, is because they have a way of marking your enemies, and then they have a way of when an enemy might be seeing you that you still have time to react. Maybe in Crushing they don't give you that time to react or the opportunity to mark enemies, so that makes the difficulty level increase a little bit, but it's totally up to you if you want to use that feature or not in the game. If you don't want to mark anybody, you don't have to. It just is there to help the player proceed through the game. With that being said, let's get into the graphics. The graphics on this game are, again, the best that I've seen out of PlayStation 4. Now, Sony is going to be doing a PlayStation 4.5 with increased graphical horsepower and stuff like that, but this really made the whole game shine through. I really honestly think that if you put out something with this big of quality on that console, to where it looked that amazing, I don't think that an upgrade is really needed, Sony. I honestly believe that the PlayStation 4 is untapped potential. I do think that its graphical range could be increased tremendously, as you've seen in this game, compared to any other PlayStation 4 game that I've played to date. And that's the main thing. I mean, I'm not saying the other games look like shit. That's not what I'm trying to imply. I'm just saying Uncharted 4 looks that good. And that when you have something that looks so detailed to where I can look across the canyon and see an individual leaf on the cliff of the vine that's hanging down, that's awe factor. And the game does a justice to showing you these awe moments to where they're not missed, they're not wasted. They either make the banter between the two characters on the screen, or three or more, very like, hey man, look at this view, and it's very casual, very natural, you know, like somebody would say that in that situation, like, man, dude, look at this, you know. So I feel like that's just another thing, is that we could get into the graphics aspect, the character models in this game, the emotions on the characters' faces, and down to just the detail of their clothing, all looks tremendous. I always look at like Elder Scrolls series, and not to kind of harp on them, the eyes always do something funky to where I don't like the way the eyes look. Fallout 4 did this with Bethesda, and so does the Elder Scrolls games, as mentioned, but they really nailed emotion in the eyes. I mean, you don't have that odd factor of when you're like looking at somebody like, their face kind of looks a little bit fucking weird when they're, you know, crying, or, you know, when they're angry, or if they're in pain. It does look realistic, and that is huge that they were able to nail that, because it just immersed you that much more in the story. Even with the opening scenes of you going through, and I will say this, you need to play the other three. You could potentially play Golden Abyss. I never played Golden Abyss on the Vita, but if you do have a Vita, I highly recommend that you pick it up, because they even make references to that in this game, which is amazing. I didn't think that would happen. I thought they would just make references to the first, second, and third games. But the way it starts out is kind of a nostalgia, and you kind of go through and look at all these artifacts that you've collected over the course of the stories. And, you know, Nate kind of chuckles and laughs and makes a little bit of comment about it. And that natural behavior, that natural banter between, you know, two people, to where, you know, Nate meets his brother, and his brother's always asking, like, is things always like this? And he goes, no, not really. Okay, kinda, yeah, they're pretty much like this. I mean, that line right there of just natural banter, that wasn't even in a cutscene, it's during gameplay. It's stuff like that you know that the details are there on this game, you know. And I'm not the only person to say that particular line. I know Greg Miller has stated that line over and over again rings to him. Honestly, when I was playing, you know, we all laughed at that point, you know. And it just, I don't know, the language, the music, the graphics, they all go hand in hand to basically create a masterpiece of a game. I cannot recommend this enough. If you've never played the Uncharted series, pick up the collection on PS4, do yourself a favor, play that, and then play Uncharted 4. And all 3 games are going, I mean, all 4 games are going to be worth more than money that you spend on them, especially with the collection. The first 3 games are amazing, and the 4th one is even better than any of those. So keep that in mind when you're playing them, that you're only going to get better as you go along. 2 and 3 could be considered equal in my eyes, but 4 is just a step above those 2. It's just on a whole different level, like I said earlier, that you can't really sit there and judge it. Now, as far as like major action scenes in this game, Uncharted, the series, has never really... it's always had these large action scenes that happen, you know. It's always these crazy over-the-top things, and this game is no different than the others. I do feel like maybe Uncharted 3 and Uncharted 2 may have had better action, like, sets in them. Not saying that Uncharted 4s are bad. They're still really, really good, but, I mean, in Uncharted 2, you have the building collapsing you're in, and in Uncharted 3, I just remember the city falling apart as you're running. It's stuff like that is iconic, that's rememberable. In this game, they do have those types of moments to where shit hits the fan, and you have a lot of action. I mean, they do have them. I would just say those other ones are on a whole different level than what was in Uncharted 4, but Uncharted 4's is definitely just a smidge below theirs. Granted, you know, the whole setting, the whole environment, again, looks beautiful. The banter is great. I still feel that Uncharted 4 is the better game than Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3, and definitely better than Uncharted 1. Now, the story, you kind of start to feel for these characters. Now, I would have pegged somebody to die, whether it had been Sully, it would have been Nate, it would have been Nate's brother, you know, somebody I thought was going to die in this game. That didn't happen at all. Nobody died, and I find that shocking that you're going to end the story, but it's really that happy ending. And, you know, it just, to me, I'm like, okay, like, nobody died. That's weird. I thought for sure that somebody was going to die. Somebody wasn't going to make it out of this adventure alive. Happy for happy endings and kind of seeing how things develop in this series, but I thought for sure, you know, hands down, somebody was going to die. Other than that, the kind of enemy character being kind of a jealous little prick, he's kind of fucking douchey, to put it in simple terms, but I wouldn't say he was crazy. I do think that he was driven by trying to make a name for himself, and he was a little driven by jealousy more than anything of Nathan. That you find that out in the final boss battle, how he finally comes out and says, you know, you always find all this shit and I can never find mine. Well, I finally found mine. I want to make sure that you don't get any credit for it. And stuff like that. You know, that makes the game great. Other than that, I mean, what else more is there to say about this game? I do feel that this game is going to be contender for Game of the Year. I strongly think it is the best game of the year that I have personally played. Now, I haven't played too many new titles this year, so like XCOM 2 I haven't played to kind of see how they do that. I haven't been able to play The Witcher, which that was last year, unfortunately. So, like I said, this year it's unrivaled. I do feel that it is going to be the game of the year, and it is going to be up there. Naughty Dog's on a whole different level right now than any other developer that I know, with how many hits they're releasing back to back and how well the games are put together. Anyways, guys, that's it for this video. Let me know what your thoughts of Uncharted 4 were. If you are going to be posting any spoilers in the comment section down below, please flag them. We want to be respectful to everybody in this community. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Again, I'm trying to do daily content, or as much content as I can for YouTube since coming back. And from there, I'll see you guys next time.